Ted Wilson, The Christmas Lie, Seventh-day Adventists are worshiping the Son at the General Conference. Remembering Christ's great sacrifice for us. General Conference Worship, December 3rd, 2024.
Spanish-speaking people, so let's hear it, all right?
There is no longer any difference between the Nominal Adventist of the Seventh-day Adventist denomination and the rest of the world. The Seventh-day Adventists have been completely absorbed into the leaven of Babylon. And so they reject the Advent pioneers and follow the mother whore Babylon, and that is the Roman Catholic Church. What do the Advent pioneers think about Christmas? Ellen G. White, Advent Review and Sabbath Herald, December 9, 1884.
Christmas is coming, is the note that is sounded throughout our world from east to west and from north to south. With youth, those of mature age, and even the aged, it is a period of general rejoicing, of great gladness. But what is Christmas, that it should demand so much attention? This day has been made much of for centuries. It is accepted by the unbelieving world, and by the Christian world generally, as the day on which Christ was born. When the world at large celebrate the day, they show no honor to Christ. They refuse to acknowledge him as their Savior, to honor him by willing obedience to his service. They show preference to the day, but none to the one for whom the day is celebrated, Jesus Christ. The 25th of December is supposed to be the day of the birth of Jesus Christ, and its observance has become customary and popular. But yet there is no certainty that we are keeping the veritable day of our Savior's birth. History gives us no certain assurance of this. The Bible does not give us the precise time. Had the Lord deemed this knowledge essential to our salvation, He would have spoken through His prophets and apostles, that we might know all about the matter. But the silence of the Scriptures upon this point evidences to us that it is hidden from us for the wisest purposes. In His wisdom, the Lord concealed the place where He buried Moses. God buried him, and God resurrected him, and took him to heaven. This secrecy was to prevent idolatry. He against whom they rebelled while He was in active service, whom they provoked almost beyond human endurance, was almost worshipped as God after His separation from them by death. For the very same purpose He has concealed the precise day of Christ's birth, that the day should not receive the honor that should be given to Christ as the Redeemer of the world, one to be received, to be trusted, to be relied on as He who could save to the uttermost all who come unto Him. The soul's adoration should be given to Jesus as the Son of the infinite God. There is no divine sanctity resting upon the 25th of December, and it is not pleasing to God that anything that concerns the salvation of man through the infinite sacrifice made for them should be so sadly perverted from its professed design. Christ should be the supreme object, but as Christmas has been observed, the glory is turned from Him to mortal man, whose sinful, defective character made it necessary for Him to come to our world. Jesus, the majesty of heaven, the royal King of heaven, laid aside His royalty, left His throne of glory, His high command, and came into our world to bring to fallen man, weakened in moral power, and corrupted by sin, aid divine. He clothed His divinity with humanity, that He might reach to the very depths of human woe and misery, to lift up fallen man. By taking upon Himself man's nature, He raised humanity in the scale of moral value with God. These great themes are almost too high, too deep, too infinite, for the comprehension of finite minds.
Alonzo Trevier Jones. American Sentinel Volume 11 Number 51. December 24, 1896.
As this number of our paper is dated the day before Christmas, it might be expected that we should have something to say about the institution. If such be the expectation of any, they shall not be disappointed. We are willing to contribute what we may for the benefit of those who would celebrate this universal festival. We say this universal festival, not because we would be understood to say that Christianity is universal, but because the period now referred to as the Christmas season has been celebrated from time immemorial by all nations. That which is now particularly celebrated as the Christmas is the remains of the ancient festival whose celebration covered a longer period of time. This festival season was celebrated in honor of the Son, and December 25th especially in gladness and rejoicing at His annual birth and the beginning of His return victorious over the powers of darkness or night. In the reigns of Domitian and Trajan, Rome formally adopted from Persia the feast of the Persian sun god Mithras, with December 25th as the birth festival of the unconquered sun, Natalis Invicti Solis. In the Louvre at Paris is the original of a mythological representation of this, which was found at Rome in a vault under the Capitol. It is entitled Mitra Sacrificing the Bull. The central object of the piece is Mitra in a cavern sacrificing a bull. As already stated, Mitra represented the sun. The bull was the symbol of the powers of night. The blood of the bull was to impart the power of regeneration. At the right hand in the cavern stands the genius of night with his torch turned down, extinguished. At the left stands the genius of day, with his torch held up, aflame. An inscription on the body of the bull reads, "To Mitra, the invincible sun god." The piece is intended to represent the victory of the sun over the powers of darkness. This sacrifice was made annually at the winter solstice, the period that is now Christmas time. Thus this annual festival was an established thing in the state and city of Rome. About the middle of the 4th century, the Church of Rome adopted this festival, making the birthday of the sun, December 25th, the birthday of Christ. And in a few years the celebration of this festival of the sun had spread among the churches throughout the whole empire, east as well as west. In one of the homilies of Chrysostom, supposed to have been delivered on this festival day in AD 386, he expresses his own pleasure and congratulates the people upon the progress made through their zeal in establishing this new festival which they had borrowed from the Western Church, and seems to speak of it as a custom imported from the West within 10 years. The perverse-minded clergy readily sanctioned the practice and relieved all doubts, with the assurance that the festival which had been formerly celebrated as the birth of the real Son was a type of the festival of the birth of Christ, the Son of Righteousness. And thus was established the church festival of Christmas. There are other items connected with the celebration of the day, whose origin and meaning are also worth mentioning. One of these is the Christmas tree. Just as the day itself and its celebration were adopted from pagan Rome, the use of the tree was adopted from the pagan Germans. And just as the day is a relic of sun worship, so also is the tree. In the Ladies' Home Journal, for December, Mrs. Lyman Abbott says of the Christmas tree, "A German friend tells me that the true Christmas tree is not a mere show, decorated for the momentary amusement of children. It is a sublime symbol of the soul life of the Germanic people for 1,000 years. The tree itself is the celestial sun tree." Another item is the decoration of the houses and churches with vines, branches of trees, etc. This is derived from the sun-worshipping Druids of Britain. An early English writer says that the trimming of the temples with hangings, flowers, boughs, and garlands was taken of the heathen people, which decked their idols and houses with such array. The ivy particularly was used in honor of Bacchus. Thus it is that Christmas Day, the celebration of the day, and the appurtenances thereto, are all heathen and only relics of sun worship.
Bacchus and Tammuz are one and the same, and Tammuz also has his birthday on December 25th. What does the Bible say?
And he put forth the form of an hand, and took me by a lock of mine head. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looketh toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O Son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose.
Excerpt from NJ 17b from Adventverlag Lüneburg 2007. True and false worship of God. The Sabbath is the memorial day for the mighty deeds of the Son of God in creation and redemption, as well as an eternal covenant sign between the Lord and his people. Jesus confirmed its significance in the New Testament. Many Christians celebrate Sunday instead of the Sabbath. How significant is this difference? There are two opposing systems of worship behind it. The development of sun worship. The systematic worship of the sun developed after the flood in Babylon under Nimrod. He was a great-grandson of Noah and is described as a mighty hunter before the Lord. He was the first tyrant on earth and founded several cities, including Babylon in Greek. Nimrod means he will be rebellious. The Bible does not tell the rest of the story of Nimrod. However, the historian Alexander Hislop describes it as follows in his book, From Babylon to Rome. Quoted from Morris Venden, Righteousness by Faith and the Three Angels' Messages, pages 19 to 22. Nimrod was worshipped in Babylon as king and god and his wife Semiramis as queen. When Nimrod died, she convinced the people that the spirit of Nimrod had gone into the sun, lived there, looked down on them and blessed them. She was believed and the people began to worship the sun. Semiramis also convinced the inhabitants of Babel that their spirit would go to the moon after their death. This is why the moon was later worshipped. Sometime after Nimrod's death, Semiramis had an illegitimate child. She named it Tammuz. To justify herself to the people, She claimed that it was a miracle child, conceived by Nimrod's spirit. So the people began to worship Tammuz too. The Babylonians also created certain holidays for themselves. One was the birthday of Tammuz on December 25th. It was also the time when people realized that the days were getting longer again after the winter solstice. They understood this to mean that the sun god was returning and bestowing his blessing on them once again. So they worshipped Nimrod in the sun and Tammuz on December 25th. They reckoned 9 months back from Tammuz's birthday and celebrated the conception of Tammuz, a fertility festival, on the day after the beginning of spring. They called it Sun Day in honor of their sun god. This later became Easter, which has been celebrated on the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the beginning of spring, since the 2nd century by order of the Bishop of Rome. Tammuz became a hunter like his supposed father Nimrod, but he was not as strong as him. One day a bear killed him. The people wept for Tammuz and a period of mourning was set. 40 days, starting 6 weeks before the Feast of Conception. Later the 40 days of Lent before Easter. Cakes were also baked for the Queen of Heaven. It was obvious that there was a connection between the rising sun and the growth and fertility of nature. So the inhabitants of Babel also began to worship the reproductive powers of man and nature, including eggs and rabbits. Since the sun god shows his blessing in fertility, they believed that the most pleasing worship for him was the use of human reproductive powers. Prostitution thus became part of the sun cult, and the sacrifice of virginity was the most pleasing sacrifice to the sun god. Later, human sacrifices were also made to the sun, on T-shaped crosses in honor of Tammuz. In other cultures, gods similar to those in Babel were worshipped under other names. The sun gods were called Ammon and Ra in Egypt, Baal in Canaan, and Shamash in the Neo-Babylonian Empire of Nebuchadnezzar. The Babylonians and Assyrians used Ishtar or Astarte as fertility gods, the Greeks Aphrodite, and the Romans Venus. In many regions there is a child prodigy similar to Tammuz, and often a woman is worshipped as the Queen of Heaven and mediator, such as Ishtar among the Babylonians, e.g. Mary, the mother of Jesus in the Catholic Church. Among the Persians who conquered the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 539 BC, the Babylonian sun god Shamash was replaced by the invincible sun god Mithras. The weekly Sunday became his holy day. The cult of Mithras spread throughout the Roman Empire from Emperor Augustus, who ruled from 30 BC to 14 AD. A Mithraic altar has been excavated in Rome. Emperor Aurelian made this sun cult a state cult in 274. At the time, it was the only serious rival to Christianity. The Israelites were strictly forbidden to worship the stars. It was even punishable by death. However, the Israelites often allowed themselves to be influenced by the surrounding pagan peoples. After the death of King Solomon, 931 BC, and the division into the northern kingdom of Israel, with Samaria as its capital, and the southern kingdom of Judah with Jerusalem as its capital, idolatry became very popular. Ezekiel 8 verses 14 to 16 makes it clear that the people of Israel also practiced elements of Babylonian worship, such as the worship of Tammuz and the worship of the sun to the east. Most Catholic churches are built on the east-west axis with the altar facing east. So the Seventh-day Adventists know exactly what they are doing. So why do they celebrate Christmas and worship the sun? Ezekiel 8 gives us an explanation.
And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. Then said he unto me, Son of man, lift up thine eyes now the way toward the north. So I lifted up mine eyes the way toward the north, and behold, northward at the gate of the altar this image of jealousy in the entry. He said furthermore unto me, Son of man, seest thou what they do, even the great abominations that the house of Israel committeth here, that I should go far off from my sanctuary? But turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O Son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east. And they worshipped the sun toward the east. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O Son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them.
Here are a few more explanations from Ellen G. White.
Those who claim to believe the truth do not possess that power that God would bestow upon them if they really believed, and were striving for conformity to his image. The church is in the Laodicean state. The presence of God is not in her midst. If Christ were formed within, the hope of glory, conformity to his image would be seen, and the church trials which separate the members from Christ would disappear. Many are deceived today in the same way as were the Jews. Religious teachers read the Bible in the light of their own understanding and traditions, and the people do not search the scriptures for themselves and judge for themselves as to what is truth, but they yield up their judgment and commit their souls to their leaders. The preaching and teaching of his word is one of the means that God has ordained for diffusing light, but we must bring every man's teaching to the test of Scripture. Whoever will prayerfully study the Bible, desiring to know the truth, that he may obey it, will receive divine enlightenment. He will understand the Scriptures. If any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, whether it be of God, or whether I speak of myself. John 7 verse 17. But the fact that a movement to establish error is connected with a work which is in itself good, is not an argument in favor of the error. We may disguise poison by mingling it with wholesome food, but we do not change its nature. On the contrary, it is rendered more dangerous, as it is more likely to be taken unawares. It is one of Satan's devices to combine with falsehood just enough truth to give it plausibility. The leaders of the Sunday movement may advocate reforms which the people need, principles which are in harmony with the Bible. Yet while there is with these a requirement which is contrary to God's law, his servants cannot unite with them. Nothing can justify them in setting aside the commandments of God for the precepts of men.
The Bible explicitly points out where all the false teachings come from.
Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from meats, which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities.